Hi Ross, thank you for joining me on the podcast. How are you doing?
Yeah, all good, Ethan. All good, and thanks for inviting us on. Appreciate it.
No worries, I really appreciate you coming on. I know it's a tough subject, so if it gets a bit too much at any point, let me know. We can take a break or anything like that.
Cool, thank you.
So you're a Hillsborough disaster survivor, and you're a director of Hillsborough Survivor Support Alliance. Can you tell me how that group came about, please?
Sure. So, look, I know it was formed back in 2019, and I reached out around the same time, late 2019. Well, where were we? We were 30 years past, and Hillsborough was always something that was going to be with me for the rest of my life. You can't swerve it if you were there. But it was I didn't think it had ever affected me or bothered me or caused me any problems. But there was a particular trigger. Um, my son he wrote a speech for something at school, and it was all about truth and justice. And he based not all of it, but some of it around Hillsborough. Um, and that was I realized just how lucky I was that I was there to witness it and what could have happened. Yeah, my story, like many others on the day, I had a ticket to stand in Lepin's Lane. I was 18. Bought a ticket outside the grounds. Was with some friends, and my friend's dad. He wanted to sit down. He was an older guy, and he wanted to sit down. He couldn't get a seat as a single, so we went back to the same place we bought the original ticket. And for an additional £5, I got a seat. So I sat upstairs, and I've always thought that was always the thing that was in my head was, whatever happened to that ticket that I swapped back, who ended up with it, what happened to them, and it's completely irrational, I know, but would I ever find out that story? So kind of triggered a few things in my head, which made me reach out. So I was aware of the HSA, and I reached out to them on Twitter, and the chair, Peter Scarf, he contacted me straight away, and we had a good chat, and he kind of, yeah, he's a great guy. He's an amazing bloke. He's really has got some life skills, and he was able to kind of rationalise where my head was, and realise that, you know, I'm never going to be able to get the answer to that, and beating myself up about it every day isn't going to make it any better. But from there, where we 2019, back into 2019, we all rapidly went into lockdown, didn't we? 4 or 5 months after that. So the group that used to meet on a 15th of each month, moved into meeting in on Zoom and online, and we set up WhatsApp groups so people could stay in touch. Um, well, for me, I lived in South Africa at the time. We moved out there 2012, and to be able to be connected and be part of the group and be involved in the group, even though we were remote. I mean, we've got members all over the world: Australia, Europe, South Africa. We really have this, people spread far and wide. Um, and that was how I got involved as a member. And then February last year, I was invited to join the board as one of the directors, which is, I was privileged to be part of something which is, very passionate, very close to my heart, and is genuinely doing or trying to do something good um, every day. Because we get, as you can imagine, this week we've had a lot of people reach out to us. We always get a spike around this time of the year, but we get people reach out to us all the time, every month. People like me who never thought there was an issue, and then suddenly there's a problem, and you realise, they need help, and there aren't many places to turn to, and that's what we try and do, is help people with the support group we've got, with the therapy that we offer, and just for people to know that, we get it. We've all been there, and there's a bunch of other people that have been through it, and we can put arms around people and help them out. So that's how the HSA came about.
Yeah, it sounds like a really brilliant thing to do. I'll leave a link in the description for anybody watching this that would like to check it out, or it might help them or whatever. But how do they join as a member, or is there anything they have to do?
No, just to reach out, our website, the Twitter handle we've got, just to reach out and say they want to chat to someone, or you can be as active or as non-active. We've got people on the WhatsApp group who've never posted, but when you speak to them, when you meet them face to face, they love the fact that ongoing there is an ongoing support there should they ever need it. We've got a banter group as well, and we chat about the football and stuff. but yeah, if anybody wants to find out what support is available, we have got, as I say, there's a bespoke therapy that was put together for the group. We've had over 250. It's called HTRM. We've had 250 people go through it that were Liverpool survivors or supporters on the day at Hillsborough. We've actually, and it is not inclusive just to Liverpool fans. As far as we're concerned, anyone that was in the ground that day, whether they were Nottingham Forest fans, and there is now a Nottingham Forest survivors group, which has got very, very close ties. Some of the people were there on Monday at the memorial. Very close ties. I think we've had 7 or 8 people gone through it from Notts Forest. We've had someone from Sheffield Wednesday go through it. And, you know, if someone from the South Yorkshire Police turned up and had a problem, we'd support them as well. It's not about whether you were just in Pen 3 or Pen 4. It's if you were traumatized by what you saw witnessed that day, you're a survivor. And yeah, we want to help those people. And it's just important that people know there is support out there for them. If they ever want it, whether it's today or it's tomorrow, or they know someone that's struggling, it's there.
Last Friday, there was a bench unveiling for survivors, and you and some other members of the group went. What was that day like?
Look, it's difficult to say it was a good day, because it was obviously a very sober day. What was amazing about it was the way. So I think it was one of the members, a guy called John Herbert. He wrote to the club some 10 years ago about the idea of a memorial to the survivors. So both to the fans that helped on the day, because as you know, there was the official services that were there to support a disaster like that didn't react in the way that maybe we've expected them to. So you saw fans carrying people that were struggling on boards, advertising boards up and down the ground, carrying out CPR. So it's dedicated to the fans on the day that did those brave actions, and to all the survivors that have come and gone since then. Unfortunately, we've lost quite a few on the way. You've decided that they just couldn't deal with what was going on, and have taken their own life, which is clearly a tragedy and something that we desperately want to make sure doesn't happen again. The club, COVID came and went, and things got stopped. But we started a dialogue again last May with the club, and Craig Evans, who's he heads up the communication team at Liverpool. He's been fantastic and instrumental in helping the design of the bench and the wording of the bench and the sighting of the bench. And he knew that we were keen for it to go in for the 35th anniversary, and made it happen. You think a bench doesn't take too much work, but I think it needed to be commissioned in the January. Everything needed to be signed off so all the works could be done. And actually on the day was really good what they did, the way they did it, the way they made it a poignant affair. The chaplain, a guy called Bill Bygroves, he said some words. We had some words from Peter Scarf, our chairman, Damien Kavanagh, who is part of another survivors group, also said some wonderful words. And then it was a small group. It wasn't a big group. There was probably about 20 people there, but it was really cool of the club. The way it was very empathetic and full of obviously compassion. So it's great that's finally got over the line. It's taken a little while to get there, and it's something that will be a legacy. Forevermore. It's if you look at the memorial, it's just to the left of the bench. The families were involved. They knew they approved it and wrote some of the words that are on the plaque in front of it. So it's it's with the full blessing of the families of the 97 as well. So it's a great legacy for us, and we something for all of us.
Does it feel like it's been 35 years since that day?
That's a good question. I was sitting there at 53 years of age, and you think, you don't feel any different. You don't think you're different. I'm still as passionate about my football club as I ever was. But yeah, the so much has changed in 35 years. When you look at footage, which I can do, you just look at the fashions and you look at the way people were treated, the uniforms, of the way the police were in, the style of the ambulances. And then you realise that 35 years is a flipping long time. The ability to have so much social media now, and it's going to be very difficult, as was shown in Paris, for something like Hillsborough ever to happen again, because everything, the CCTV can't go, well, it can go missing, but when everyone's videoing stuff on their phones and capturing facts that are happening, and there are media and there are celebrities that are also involved in what went on, it's not just football fans that get labelled. And I know we all had a label in the 80s because of the hooliganism that went on. You just got categorised in the same place. It's a different place now. So yeah, I can go back there yesterday in my head, but yeah, 35 years is a long time, and it shouldn't have taken this long to get where we are. Where are we? 2016, the last findings from the independent panel that admonished any guilt and recognised that the 1990 inquiry that said it was 91 inquiry that said it was accidental death, all of that got firmly put as lies and not truths. 97 people were unlawfully killed, and it was negligence of the authorities. Yet no one's been held account to that, which is, it's hard to take. It's very hard to take.
We'll get on to all the aftermath soon, but researching it and looking into it in more detail, it must have been a bit of like a roller coaster kind of thing, because there were times when they got your hopes up and then just brought you back down again, wasn't there?
Yeah. Look, if it wasn't for the campaigners, the likes of Anne Williams, then it probably would have just gone into the long grass, which was what the authorities wanted. And as it's well documented, the people of Liverpool, they don't give up when they think there's been an injustice. So to keep pushing away, to keep fighting for a new inquiry, and yeah, in 2016 was 2012. The apologies came from the likes of David Cameron, and then 2016 we got the findings of that inquiry. And you thought then, well, great, we surely finally will get some. If all of these things were wrongs, then who's accountable and where's the consequence? And there we are. And I don't, I'm not sure there will be anything now. But it's something at least to know that, because you still get it today. Oh, gosh, I was reading something on one of our Twitter feeds. Still, people go on about, it was caused by ticketless fans. You caused the problem yourself. So you think, even with all that public information that was out there, people still want to believe and read another narrative, which then leads to the tragedy chanting and the horrible stuff here at the grounds, which is, it's hard to take. It's hard to listen to. There's no place for it. There's no place for any of the tragedy chanting that goes on, regardless of whether it's Liverpool, whether it's about Leeds fans in Galatasaray, what happened there, whether it's about Munich. There's just no place for it. It's not, you go to football for entertainment. It's not banter. It's not banter at all. People know what they're doing, and it's horrible.
Just on tragedy chanting, do you think it's got worse over the years, or do you think you see more of it now because of social media?
No, it's definitely got worse. It's definitely got worse. So I was a regular season ticket holder, went every week from when I started going back, because I didn't go to football from 89 to probably 96. And I started going again regularly 98, 99, and then until we left in early 2012. I don't remember it at all. I remember that the derby was getting a little bit more feisty, but I don't remember hearing the chants. And now, since I've gone back, I don't get back very often. I maybe get back to 3 or 4 games a season. It's harder to list the clubs that don't sing it than it is to list the ones that do. It really is. I mean, there is some great clubs out there that, Palace on Sunday were amazing. Brighton, awesome. Arsenal. And then you get other fans like Leicester, and you think, what have Leicester ever done? What have we done to Leicester fans for them to want to sit there and sing things about how we killed our own fans? It's just Chelsea, Man United. Yeah, I know there's history there. I know there's some really hateful people there that will never educate. But the mass levels that people sing, and then you look at it and you see 17, 18, 19-year-olds doing it. You think, well, that becomes an education piece, doesn't it? Because they weren't even alive at Hillsborough. So they're learning that from the elders or parents or whatever, or people they look up to. And it's a real tough one. I mean, Forest were amazing when they came 2 seasons ago with the banner. It was the first time they were in the Premiership, and they had the banner up about no to tragedy chanting. We have a flag. If you ever look at the Kop from the pitch, in the bottom left-hand corner is our flag, the HSA flag. It's always waved every match by J1 and members. And there's actually 2 flags, and Forest took in the other flag into the away end. So they're both flags, and it was cool. But why? So it's cool. Why do people need to have to go to that length to try and get that out there? It shouldn't be like that. You should be able to go to a football match or a rugby match or a cricket match or whatever sporting event and not have to think that people are going to be so hateful in some of the things that they do. And it's not a one-off. This has been going on now for, well, your question was, has it been getting worse? Definitely. And social media, yeah, people can sit behind keyboards. We see people set up accounts, maybe a month old with 2 followers, just so they can be anonymous and post some pretty vile stuff. Yeah, it's what makes people want to do that. Don't get it.
No, it's scandalous, really, isn't it?
Yeah, it's just that need.
Before we get to that day, what was it like supporting Liverpool before then?
Well, look, you can hear from my accent. Born in London in the 70s, I was fortunate to be out. I supported Liverpool because my older brother supported Liverpool. But in the playground at school, it was Liverpool, Man United, and Arsenal. They were the clubs. I went to school in Shepherd's Bush, so there was a lot of QPR, a lot of Chelsea fans. But yeah, when your team's winning stuff, it's great. And it was only, I think it was only after the 90s, the early 90s, people realised maybe they took some of that for granted. I think perhaps Man United are feeling a little bit of that now. It goes in cycles, doesn't it? It goes in cycles. Man City will, they're flying at the minute, and what will happen when Pep goes, don't know. But it was brilliant. It was brilliant. It was. You meet your mates at Euston Station, or you meet your mates wherever. If we were travelling to Southampton, you'd agree on at school on a Friday, where you'd meet on the Saturday. You'd have less than a tenner in your pocket. You get to the ground early because you wanted to pay and get in and not get lost out. And then you'd get to the train station, maybe a bag of chips on the way home. You'd have a day out for a tenner. But it was brilliant. It was as a 16, 17, 18-year-old, it was brilliant. That was all we lived for. Where we're going to go Saturday, what was the route, how do we get there? And then it was really all tickets. Semi-finals and finals were the only games that you had tickets for. And maybe the European stuff, but being in London was as a teenager, it was pretty much impossible to get to a European game. The trains didn't get back in time, but yeah, it was amazing times.
Can
It was
you
funny,
remember?
sat there on.
Oh, sorry. No, it's okay.
I was sat there on Monday because as a group, we get together once a month. It's only the second time I've been able to be face to face with everybody, and we was a group of us chatting about what our favourite grounds were in the 80s when we were travelling away. Some of the places that we'd been to, Coventry City's old ground, Oxford's old ground. They were great days. They were fun days, and you made a plan, and we were supporting the best team in the world. It was all about winning on a Saturday and hopefully winning another trophy. So yeah, it was good to reminisce.
Yeah, you had a good team in the 80s as well, didn't you?
It weren't bad.
Do you remember your first Liverpool game?
I do. It was Liverpool QPR. It was on Easter Monday, 1981. On the Friday, we'd gone to watch. It was the first league game I'd gone on the Friday. Went to watch Palace and Watford play at Watford. I remember watching Vince Hilaire and John Barnes. That was my brother. And on the Monday, we went to see QPR Liverpool at Loftus Road. And it was 0-0. I remember Paul Walsh hit the post, but yeah, it's funny, isn't it? I can remember something from 40 odd years ago.
Exactly, yeah. So what made you fall in love with Liverpool Football Club then?
My older brother, he's 10 years older than me. His favourite player was Roger Hunt. He used to go to watch QPR, West Ham, and local clubs. I'd say local clubs. There were clubs that were easy to go and watch if you lived in London. And he was always blown away by Roger Hunt, which is what made him want to support Liverpool. He was my older brother. You know, he could have said we're supporting Leyton Orient. He could have said we're going to support, you know, Scarborough Town. It didn't matter. I was going to follow what my big brother did. And then there's that bit of time at school, isn't there, when someone says to you, well, what's your team? And you say, and they go, oh, they're rubbish. And you go, no, they're not. And the minute you said, no, they're not, that's it. Your colours are pinned to the mast then. So, yeah, that's how it was. I think actually, somebody else said to me the other day, what was the day that it really got? I think the night Liverpool won the quarter-final in '86 FA Cup at Watford, and I was well, I'd have been 15, and I was allowed to go on my own night game. Liverpool won. They shouldn't have won. They were dead lucky. We got a penalty at the end that was VAR would have definitely overturned it. Anyway, we won the game. I think it was 2-1. Rushy scored the pen, but it was that night it was a Vicarage Road. The away end at that time was quite old, but it had that low roof, and the atmosphere was the singing was amazing. That was probably the night where the bug really got me.
Can you remember the days leading up to the semi-final with Nottingham Forest in '89? Then,
yeah, I can. We went to a lot of games in '89. We went to '88. We went to pretty much every cup game. '89, again, most of them. I travelled with a good friend of mine, Sally, and her husband. They were then driving to the game, so got a lift up to Nottingham Forest. I can't remember the league games. I probably have to there's nothing that stands out in that season, but it was a great team. We were winning every week. We were, as far as we were concerned, it was going to be another chance for a double. But I remember us agreeing that we were going to drive up. Sally's husband must have picked me up about 7:00 from. We lived in Ruislip. They lived not far away, and we wanted to get up there early because we didn't have tickets, which was often the case in those days. But there was the guys would stand outside. Tickets outs would sell you legitimate tickets. Obviously, you were paying a premium for those tickets, but it meant we were getting in the ground. There was no other way of getting in there. But yeah, I just remember being excited about another FA Cup semi-final. The year before, it'd been brilliant. I'd gone with my brother, and we stood in the I think would be pen 1. So we were in the corner by the corner flag, and we played brilliant. I remember it was Barnes cross for Aldridge, or Aldridge cross for Barnes, the second goal right in front of us. But yeah, we're thinking, there we go. It'll be the same as last year. It'll be another win. But it was we'll see. Well, very different scenario played out.
you know the '88 semi-final? There was reports there of crushing and stuff. Do you remember seeing any of that or anything?
I really don't. I don't. I remember we parked up ourselves. Me and my brother Stuart. We parked up in up the Leppings Lane Road, probably at least half a mile away in a side street. Walked down. We would have got there early. You're traveling from London. You don't want to risk trouble with traffic, so you're always happy to get a couple of hours at least before the game. And we had tickets. I bought tickets 2 or 3 weeks earlier when we played Forest in the league in Nottingham Forest. So we weren't having to scout about for tickets. We had tickets already. But yeah, I remember we walked down. There was at some stage there was a line or a cordon of police that were just checking tickets, and I don't remember them being there the following year. But we also had come from a different way, so they may have been. I can't remember. But we were in the ground really early, and I certainly don't remember there being. So I wouldn't know if there was anything outside. We were in the corner, which certainly didn't get busy. It wasn't packed. My brother didn't want to stand behind the goal because he knew it'd be mobbed. He was a bit more sensible than me. That's where I'd have been, straight behind the goal. So yeah, we were over towards the right. But I didn't see anything in 1988 that would give me any concern about going back on my own in '89.
So the morning of '89, you travel up, and you've not got a ticket or anything. What time did you get to the ground?
Probably about 11:00.
Oh, you were there that early, yeah.
Yeah, because if there's any tickets around, we didn't know if we get tickets, but if there are any tickets around, they're going to go quite quickly. So you want to make sure that you've secured a ticket, and then we can maybe go and get something to eat, and look forward to the game.
What was it like outside the ground at that time?
It wasn't busy. It wasn't busy at all. There were people around, but it wasn't busy. And we found someone who was selling tickets. Sally and Steve got their tickets. They bought 2 seats. I bought a ground ticket. for Leppings Lane, and then we were just trying to get one for Charlie. And I've said this before, I still don't understand why, but at that time, if you could only seem to buy tickets in pairs, people wouldn't sell your ticket in a single. But we said, we'll keep walking around and we'll find someone, and we couldn't find anyone that was selling a single. So we went back to the same fella maybe an hour later, and I'd give him my stand ticket plus a fiver, and he gave us, and then he sold us 2 seats. So we were done by about midday, 12:30. I'm pretty sure we went for something to eat, a bag of chips or something, and we was in the ground by 2:00. I was now in the Leppings Lane, but in the seats at the back, at the top.
The top
again, yeah. So the tier that was looking down right behind the goal, looking down onto Leppings Lane. But yeah, and that was always our. Well, I was 18. We didn't go to pubs. That was nothing anyway. At that age, it was about getting in the grounds, getting the songs going. Because the grounds would normally fill up early, watching the teams come out, singing the players' names. It was the build up was all part of the day. So not walking in. We can walk in at 2:55 now, because your seat's going to be ready for you. Back then, if you wanted a decent spot, you'd get in the ground early. And even though we had seats, it was just part of our routine. We'd always get in as early as we could.
Is there a point? Is there a point when you realised something was wrong in the lower tier?
Yeah, 100%. So it was before before the players came out. I remember looking down, and it was packed. It was really packed. I was probably looking at pen 4, and there was a fella who was maybe 3/4 of the way down on the left-hand side, and he had pushed himself up to about his thighs with everyone else's shoulders and heads were where his thighs were. And I remember looking down thinking, Jesus, that must be some force down there for him to be able to be. He wasn't a small fella, but he pushed himself up. It must be so tight for him not only to have wanted to have done that, but for him to have been able to have done that and people still hold him up. That was at 2:45, and then teams would have come out, whether it was 10 or 7 or 8 minutes. So I'm looking at the teams come out. I remember Hansen was coming back from injury. He captained the team, ran out. But normally you're looking at the pitch and you're looking at what's going on. I couldn't focus from what I was seeing down the front, thinking that's bad. That's got to ease up. And then the game kicked off, and it was 6 minutes in, wasn't it, when Beardsley hits the bar, and that's when there was the big ooh, and then people moved forward as would happen, and that's when the barriers gave way, and then we knew that there was really in problems. The crash.
Was there a point like there was pulling people up to the top tier, wasn't there? What was you doing at this point?
Yeah, well, we were 2 rows from the back, so we could see what was going on. There was no point. There was a lot of people already down there doing that, and you kind of disbelieve in what you're seeing. You certainly wouldn't for a minute think that there's going to be something going on that's that bad that there would even be one fatality, let alone the 97 that it transpired to be. So, and you're expecting, there's a lot of authorities, there's a lot of police there, there's lots of stewards there. You'd think they would be acting and moving fast. So yeah, it was probably only afterwards when we saw it on the TV, some of the footage, that we realised just how many people got pulled up. And I think it was around, well, certainly it was, I don't know, let's say an hour had passed, 45 minutes, an hour. And there was a fella, he was just in front of me to the left. And back in the day, people, instead of having social media on their phones, people would have a radio, listening to the scores, because there was another cup semi-final going on. It would be standard, you want to know what's going on. And he turned around and said, there's people died. And it's like, how do you actually process that information? And it may have been 4 or 5 at the time. And then there were 3 more occasions when he turned around to us and said what the number had gone up to. And it was just like, it was just surreal, Ethan, how you process that is happening and you're watching it. just bonkers.
It's one of those things, unless you've gone through it, you can't really imagine how you'd feel or anything like that, can you?
No, we just not you're not prepared for it. I guess it's look, if someone's involved in a very serious car accident or anything that was never planned that suddenly causes enormous trauma, your brain's not geared up that that was going to happen on that day. Therefore, how you react to it. You're whether it's training or whether it's your natural instincts. I know I've spoken to a couple of people. One who said to me that they were trained at CPR, but they didn't do anything on the day because they froze. And somebody else I spoke to, who only recently I met him actually, who did go on the pitch and he did give CPR to somebody, and that person found him 10 years later and invited him to go to his wedding because he saved his life. But he couldn't deal with that. He kind of processed that in a different way. But it's just how some people reacted on the day, and it was it was a difficult one to process. That's for sure.
I know you said when you went into the ground it was a bit earlier, so did you not see the crowds outside of that
No,
early? What was the policing and stuff like at that time?
again, it was at least 2 o'clock that we went in. So if you're an hour before kickoff, there's going to be people. There's going to be a few people about, but there was nothing that really made me think, "Oh, this is different to the year before." Really, there wasn't. Because we went in so early, there was no queue. There was strapped to the turnstile, tickets in, up the stairs, in the seat. Didn't even go out for a coffee or a packet of chips or something after that. Stayed in the seat. It was only about, say, quarter to three, 22 quarter to three when I looked down and thought, "There's a problem." That was the first time I got any indication.
It's hard to understand, like you're in the upper tier and you can see that the lower tier's packed, but police just don't do anything about it. Was that hard to process?
Completely. It just didn't make sense. And people were shouting. They were asking for help. And I remember there was a policeman. He was kind of just patrolling behind the goal. And there was just like a few hand signals about, clearly he didn't understand what was going on, or it wasn't being communicated to him. But it wasn't difficult to see there was a problem. I didn't think. And where we were in the Leppings lane, if you look to the right hand side of the Leppings lane from the seats, is where the control tower is, and that's where the match commanders of the day and the officials. That's where they're supposed to be. They had a perfect view of what was going on. I know it's well documented that the Duckerfield, it was his first gig, but he would have had people around him who wouldn't have been their first match, and they would have known there was a problem. I mean, he was the one that gave the authority to release the gates outside to stop the crush from happening. So he knew there was a problem, and so that's difficult to take, that there wasn't a faster reaction, there wasn't better communication to the troops. There was plenty of police in the ground when there was that cordon that they put in the middle of the pitch, which was designed to stop there being any confrontation between the fans. Well, that wasn't going to happen. That simply wasn't going to happen. That was just such a bad decision on the day when all of those police could have helped, do what the fans were doing, just try and save people's lives.
The police said at the time it was hooliganism, and even if say it wasn't, obviously we know now, but say it was, there were still kids getting crushed at the front that had nothing to do. Like you'd still help them really if you had any decency.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm pretty sure some of those police officers that would have stood in that line across the pitch have asked themselves that question every day. Why didn't they do something? Because they would have had the training to do it. Yet they were following orders, right? I get that. That's what they're paid to do. And if they'd probably broken ranks and done something else, there would have been consequences for them. But I put the blame fairly in the leadership of that police force on the day. They made bad decisions, incredibly bad decisions, and then covered it up with lies.
Exactly. We'll get onto the lies and stuff soon, but there's a lot of mistakes they made that day. There's the opening the gate and letting everybody through. And then there's not letting everybody down the centre tunnel instead of having stewards telling them to go. Was there like seats at the side or pens at the side that were empty?
Yeah, there were so, actually opening the gate to let people through on its own as a decision was probably a sensible one, because there was a crush going on outside. Um, there wasn't enough space, there wasn't enough time for the people that were outside to get through the turnstiles before the kickoff, right? And that's been proven. Those people that were there who turned up because of the traffic issues and then the other reported issues that while people didn't get there on time, they could never have got through the gates the way that however many people could get through each turnstile in a minute, there wasn't enough minutes for the amount of people before kickoff. So people knew that. Well, we'd all been to games before. I remember being at the Arsenal for a League Cups game a year or two before, and there were problems with the tubes. And you stood outside thinking, are we going to make kickoff? And then there's an announcement saying, game's delayed by 15 minutes. And you're just like, no problem. So it takes all the pressure off. That would have been the simple thing. Delay the game by 15 minutes, delay the game by half an hour. Wouldn't have been a drama. You have to worry about TV or kickoff for TV or adverts. It wasn't live on the telly anyway. That would have been the sensible thing. Opening the gate to let people through and stop the crush. I can see there being an argument for that, because he's trying, if they're trying to relieve a problem. But then to have done that, when you came through those gates, the first thing you're looking at is the tunnel, which led you into 3 and 4. Now, that tunnel had a huge, whether it was steel or wood, I don't know, but it was a gate, it just stood across. So that if they'd have moved the gate across to go, that's full, as people would have come through, they'd have had to go to the right or left hand, which is where the other pens for 1 and 2 and 5 and 6 were. She just went round to the sides, because that one would have been full. And again, fans were used to go. These are match game fans, right? They're not day tourists, or they'd never been before. The people that are used to going to these grounds, they'd have been to Sheffield Wednesday before, they'd have known what the layout of the ground was. And sometimes places get busy. You don't want to go in there if it's already packed. You'd go elsewhere. So it was a series of decisions that were poor. But again, if there'd have been Duckerfield, it was his first game of that magnitude. But that's not an excuse, because he would have had people with him whose weren't there. They would have been there and would have known what to do. So how could so many senior officers make such bad decisions?
It's crazy, really, isn't it? When you really think about it and you look deeper and deeper into the story, it's unsettling, really.
Yeah.
But with the big gate that they opened, do you think they should have just let a few fans in, say like a few hundred, and then closed it and opened it again, or would the crusher got worse outside?
So from the footage I've seen, the pressure was so much that as that gate opened, they could never have closed it, because there were so many people that needed to get through. There was police horses that were trampling on people. I'm not sure. The opening the gate relieved that pressure and that bottleneck. But then as people have come through, all they've seen is the tunnel. You'd have seen the green of the pitch, people's heads, the sky. You need to go, I'm going in there. If that had been shut, they wouldn't have even seen it, or there'd have been people directing people to go to the left or the right. Where there was plenty of room. There was so much room in those other pens.
How long was you in the ground after 6 minutes past 3?
I think it was about 20 past 4:30 when it was announced that the game was over, or the game wasn't going to restart, and for people to leave the ground. I'm not 100% sure of the timings on that, but it was a long period of time. I remember, I'm sure Dalglish came on over the tannoy, and then I can't remember who it was, but someone came on the tannoy to say the game was officially abandoned. So we started to make our way out.
We've mentioned obviously there was no social media back then and mobile phones and stuff. Was you still living at home at this time?
Yeah. I was home. My mum
How
and dad.
did they know what happened to your mum and dad, or did you have to ring or anything like that?
My dad had picked up what was going on through the news and was watching it on, and obviously then told my mum what was going on. I was one of the very, very lucky ones. So Sally's dad, who he travelled from Nottingham, the job he had at the time, he was probably in my age now. The job he had at the time, he had a job with a company car and a mobile phone, which was rare. In the 80s, they were just starting to come out. So he was able to ring through to my mum and dad to let them know, probably 4:30. And I remember as we drove away, I remember seeing the queues of people stood at telephone boxes. And I've heard the stories of people of Sheffield Wednesday who let people into their houses to use their telephones, because, countless stories of how long it took to get the message through to people, people's families, that they were okay. So yeah, I was dead lucky. It was probably 4:15, 4:45 that mum and dad knew I was okay.
What was the journey home like?
A bit surreal, Ethan. It was just like, did that really happen? We had it on the radio for a bit and then we switched it off. Just couldn't listen to it anymore. It was very, very quiet. I remember getting to a service station, just stop for drinks and some fill up with petrol. And I remember the lady who was serving us, because we had scarves and shirts on, semi-final. And she made a comment. I don't remember it being, it wasn't necessarily a derogatory comment, but it certainly insinuated that there'd been crowd trouble. Which I guess technically it was. There was trouble that happened within the crowd, but it was very much, she didn't know any different. She'd probably been passed it on by a colleague or what have you. But immediately it immediately instilled a reaction in me of, no, it wasn't crowd trouble, it wasn't hooliganism. There was a disaster. From what I could see at the time, because none of us knew what had gone on in the back. All of the facts didn't come out for many years later, but what I'd seen was because when pens 3 and 4 emptied, and you could see that the crash barriers, the barriers that you lean on, or you try and get behind you, because you didn't want to lean on it, because if you were leaning on it, you had a crowd behind you, you were going to get problems. But at least 2, if not 3 of those collapsed, which was what that's what caused the crash. And when I saw that, solid metal just flat on the floor, I knew that's what had caused the issue as far as I was concerned. And that wasn't caused by crowd trouble or football hooliganism. That was caused by the sheer pressure of people. So yeah, it was a very odd journey home. Funny enough, I got home and my dad was like, "Oh, son, I've recorded it all. It's all on the video for you to watch." I'm like, "That's the last thing I want to watch." But again, none of us were really aware of the facts. He didn't know what I just witnessed. But it was, it was odd. And not coming from the city, not being from Liverpool, it was news in London, but it was news that happened in other place. None of my other mates at school had gone, because there's about 4 or 5 of us that we used to go to game. No one else had gone up apart from my friend Sally and her husband. So there was no one really to talk to about it either, which was a bit strange. So yeah, it was, and of course the newspaper came out with its version of what it believed was the truth the following day or the day after. And it was hard, because you knew what the narrative was going on, or what was being printed for people to read wasn't what happened. But who's going to listen to an 18-year-old? So my father was in the police force, as was my brother, he's retired now, and his wife. So I was in a family. I was the youngest son of 3 in a heavily dominated police family. So if I'd have come up with any criticism of the police at that time, my argument wasn't going to get listened to for very long. But I knew what I'd seen and I knew what I'd heard, and obviously as that information's come out over the years, my version, or the correct version, has proved that the narrative for the day was very, very wrong.
Do you remember seeing that story from the Sun at the time?
I think I do. I'm pretty sure I do, because I had a full-time job and I had a part-time job. The part-time job was in a bar, it was in a bar, and actually it was in an officer's mess at RF Northolt. And in the canteen there was, I think I worked the following week, or I worked in the week, and I'm sure there was a copy of it in there. I didn't read it. I didn't really want to talk about it. 18 years of age, I probably hadn't processed it properly. Was just grateful that I was okay. You couldn't move from anywhere from the news. It was on the news constantly. It was in the press constantly. And I think I just tried to avoid stuff.
It's a bad enough story anyway, making lies up like that, but to do it so soon after, when families are grieving and stuff, just isn't right at all, is it?
Nah, nah, and it's that newspaper's still not. You can't. It's very hard to find a copy of that in Merseyside, and yeah, regardless of what they printed since, the feelings against Galvin Mackenzie will always run very hot, and rightly so. They would bang out of order.
The thing is, as well, back then there was only newspapers and the news on the TV and radio. So whatever they're saying through that is what the public are going to believe. It's not like now if you had social media, you could say you was there and this is what happened. People are going to believe that narrative through the news. Did you notice that at the time? The public believing that?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I remember. I can only remember one other instance of hearing a stranger talk about it. It was in, it was in the same bar, and there were two officers, and they were talking about it at the bar, and again, you could tell the narrative was immediately, it was a problem. It was hooliganism. It was the fans. The fans caused the issue. Well, they're only going to have picked that information up from what they've read in the press or what they've heard in the news. But you're spot on, Ethan. It's amazing how media can form people's opinions, and so as far as they're concerned. I mean, this stuff goes on. It happens now, doesn't it? What we get fed in the media, what's going on in the Ukraine and Russia, what's going on in Palestine and Israel. The news decides, the media decides what they want to show us, and the narrative they want us to believe. It's amazing what the media can do these days. But it's not really that much different. There's more of it now, and it's probably hard. Just as hard today to work out whether something is real and true, or whether there's an underlying agenda in it. But yeah, back then, as you say, it was a newspaper you bought from the newsagents, or the 9 o'clock news if you put it on, or the other radio. That was the only place where you would get what you thought was official information.
So what was it like the whole aftermath after that with inquests and stuff? Did you keep up with that? And was you involved in any of it?
No, I really wasn't. I did go to the final. I wasn't able to get to the semi-final, the replay. I went to the final, which again was incredibly emotional day. I went to whether it was the first home game, it was certainly the first home game I got to the following season. And I remember I was sat in the old Kemlyn, which again was unusual because I normally would have stood on a cop. And I remember sitting there thinking, I don't want to be here. I didn't have any of the feelings that I used to have about the football, or being at Liverpool. I just had this incredible feeling of, I don't want to be here. I've fallen out of love with this. And I didn't go to a game again I didn't go to a Liverpool game again until probably late 90s. I started playing rugby. And again, I didn't stop watching for Liverpool's results, but there wasn't the same. This wasn't the same passion that I'd had before. And no, I didn't stay. I knew about the Taylor report. I remember the Taylor report coming out, and I thought, that's okay. That sounds like it's that they've got another problem there and what happened. And I remember I did go to Euro 96. I went to England versus Holland at Euro 96. Went to Wembley. And I remember being in the seats thinking, this is really good. This is changed, because Wembley was a bit of a dump, right? But it had changed. I thought it changed for the better. There were families there. There were kids there. It felt very safe because of the all seating. And I remember thinking, well, that's a positive that's come out of Hillsborough. That's got to be a positive after all. What happened. The tragedy of the day, for something positive to have come, which means that could never happen again. It's got to be a positive. But no, I didn't. I didn't really pick up again until 2012 when the independent inquiry findings came out in 2012. And I remember it because we were in South Africa at the time. I remember sitting down and watching it, and there was on reflection after that, I remember feeling a little bit of guilt that from 1990 or 90, it was 91, I think, when it came out of being accidental death, and the families, rightly so, set up the justice campaign and fought to make sure that false news was, or that narrative wasn't going to be the truth, or the legacy that was kept in the public domain. And so where are we? 91 to 2012. That's best part of 20 years. I probably stuck my head in the sand and didn't have much to do with it. And there's a little bit of guilt I've got about that. It was just the way I dealt with it. I can't change it because that's the way it happened. But I didn't stay abreast of it. I didn't stay. I knew I knew it was going on in the background, but I was nowhere near as close to it as I am now. Yeah, so that's probably the timelines there for me.
When did you learn about all the cover-ups? What year was that? Or was it
Well,
like a gradual thing?
what? So there was always a belief, and there was always this, not rumors, but you heard other people's stories about things that had been changed. But I think it was 2016 when all those findings came out that we realised just how much had gone on, how much of a cover up there had been, the amount of statements that had been changed, and that was really hard to take, because again, you're brought up, you certainly were brought up in the 70s and 80s to trust the authorities, weren't you? I remember as a kid, if you were told that if you ever got lost or if there's a problem, you can speak to policemen and they'd sort you out. So they were stand-up people of your authority, and they were trustworthy and what have you. And then you read that, and you read what happened with the CCTV tapes and the letters that were written in Parliament, not in Parliament, but amongst memos and emails, or notes, so not emails, but memos that were written between MPs. It was a cover up. I know it was probably the biggest cover up that is known about in legal history. And then that, again, coming from a family that was a police family, it's difficult to not to take it because it's the fact, but it then leads to a level of mistrust, right? Very difficult to trust. And you see what's gone on with Manchester Arena, Grenfell. Yeah, there's many other the post office stuff that's gone on recently. Again, you just don't think that the post office are going to do something like that, because you can trust the post office. So if you can't trust the post office, and you can't trust the police, and you can't trust the government, tough place to be, eh? You start to question many other things.
Exactly, yeah. I know you said you kind of didn't keep up with the what was going on after and stuff, but did you feel at one point you were kind of fighting a losing battle at any point with the police?
Again, I didn't, because I rightly or wrongly, the way I managed it was I put my head in the sand and I didn't have anything to do with it. I knew the justice campaign was going on, the badges and stickers, and would donate, but I wasn't closely attached to it. More recently, with the failings for there to be public prosecutions, because when you see that 97 people were unlawfully killed, and it was down to the authorities' negligence, right? That's what's published. Then rightly, you would expect there to be some consequence for that. You can't have 97 people unlawfully killed and then for there to be no consequence or accountability. Someone somewhere, some authority has got to be responsible for that. And for it to have gone through the way it's gone since then, for it to have got into court and out of court, some of the decisions it's just beyond belief, beyond belief. Look, you don't. And it's not about there being a witch hunt, but if decisions were made that resulted in the death of that many people, and someone was accountable and responsible on the day to make sure for the safety of those people that they had a good day, they got in the ground, they watched the game, they went home safely. That's not an unrealistic expectation to have. And for people's actions on the day for that not to happen, there should be a consequence. The Duckenfield sat there with a pension, 84,000 a year. Thanks very much. Yeah, he's had to go through court, and I'm sure his there's monsters he's got in his mind that he can't ever get rid of. But he should have been, in my opinion, it's my opinion, there should have been a consequence for his decisions on the day. And I don't get it. I don't get that at all. Well, I'm drawing a comparison here, but the inquiry's going on now at the post office. Will there be, so there's similarities there, because postmasters, again, upstanding people in the community, they've taken their lives over what happened, some of them, because they can't deal with the guilt and the shame, or the financial penalties that they were going to have to pay. And people in authority in the post office knew about that, covered it up. So will this inquiry hold those people accountable? And that's some of what Hillsborough law is about, which again the government has politely tried to kick in the long grass by saying it will form a charter. But it's way more than that. It's that when these things happen, because unfortunately these things do happen, right? And it's how the governments or the authorities of the day handle the people impacted, which are the families, normally, of those that have deceased. And for there to be, a genuine consequence if people lie and people tell untruths, which happened in Hillsborough and is happening today in the post office. If they do that, then there needs to be accountability. There needs to be a strong consequence, so that there can't be lies and cover-ups in the future.
Exactly, like it's like one rule for one and another rule for everybody else. Like if it was football hooligans who had caused that, they'd have had consequences straight away. It wouldn't have been this far down the line, would it?
Completely. And we get that. We constantly get the what about Heysel and blah blah. I think there were 14 people convicted for Heysel. Liverpool and Liverpool's fans and Liverpool Football Club accept full accountability for what happened in Heysel. They did. We caused that problem. However people want to dress it up, and however people want to say it was because of, and it should have never been played in that stadium, get all of that. But ultimately, those people, those Italians, 37, 39 people died because of the actions of the Liverpool fans rushing them. Whether it was retaliation or not, it's irrelevant. That action caused that issue. And 14 people got convicted of that and did, spent prison sentence, custodial sentences because of that. So there was consequence for people's actions. But there's been nothing. There's been nothing so far for Hillsborough, bar a fine for Sheffield Wednesday for not having the right certificate. I think that's just not right.
Do you think that Heysel disaster was easy for the police to point fingers at Liverpool as hooligan, like what had happened as hooliganism?
Probably, yeah, probably. And I didn't go away in Europe in the 80s with Liverpool. I did in the 2000s. Went to Rome, I've been to Paris, I've been to Istanbul, I've been to Athens, been to Lisbon. So I've seen Liverpool away from home in Europe, and seen Liverpool away from home in domestic many times. I don't remember ever seeing football hooliganism, and I'm not going to say it didn't happen, because I know it would have done it. There would have been pockets of it, but clearly, what happened at Heysel would have been easy for then the government of the day to say it's hooliganism. We all know, because that's what happened in 1985. And that's the narrative in Paris. That's exactly what they tried to do in Paris, and say it's football hooliganism. Liverpool, and it's not just Liverpool fans, unfortunately, English football fans, because I don't think it happens to Scottish football fans, but English football fans do get treated in a very strict way when they're away from home, because of the legacies of the past. And that's not going to go away.
Did you go to the Champions League final in Paris?
I was in Paris. I didn't go to the final, so I only managed to get one ticket. And I took my son. So William's, he's 19 now. I was in Istanbul, I was in Athens, so I've been at 2 European Cup finals, and I thought, I know there might not be another one in our lifetime. You don't know. So I wanted him to experience it. So he went, and he went with some great mates of mine, older guys who again travelled a lot around Europe. So I knew he was going to be safe with them. So we stayed in Paris. I stayed in Paris with some other friends and watched it in a pub. Well, he went to the game, so yeah, he unfortunately experienced, which again, we had huge. That Hillsborough was a big trigger for many people. Our phones and our Twitter went off the hook with people that needed support, such to the point that we needed to set up another support group just to help with that, just to be able to handle the amount of people that struggled. Of course, for me, having been at Hillsborough and then hearing what happened to William and the crush that was in the tunnel, and you kind of think, yeah, it for what was meant to be a brilliant day could have turned into something different. And if it wasn't for the Liverpool fans and many of them that said, let's just be calm, remember what happened before, let's just relax, then there could have easily been a different scenario in Paris.
That's what I was going to say, because with outside, it did trigger some people that were at Hillsborough, like you've mentioned. I saw that 2 people actually killed themselves that were at Hillsborough and then in Paris. So it shows the effect it has many years later, doesn't it? And that things can trigger it.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. And at time, you never know when it's going to catch. It was 30 years for me, and it's been less for others and longer for others. But yeah, things like that. And yeah, that's what the HSA is there for, is to just to try and hopefully be, if someone is at that place in their life, that they would reach out to us. I know Peter and Diane. So Diane is our vice chair. Peter's the chair. They've had several cases where they've been the last call that someone was making, and they've managed to get positive outcomes from it, which is amazing. I don't know how they're amazing what they do and how they're able to answer the phone at 3 a.m. and be able to deal with that and then carry on with their own lives. But yeah, it's for there to be something like that in 2022, 2022, wasn't it? For there to be an event like that in 2022, it's just unforgivable. Unforgivable. Again, the authorities, I don't know what they were thinking before the game. But then after the game, when there were fans of both sides, Madrid and Liverpool were being attacked by gangs looking to steal phones and wallets and what have you, and then the police backed off and didn't do anything. So there's an incredible level of aggression before the game, and then no policing after the game. What agenda they're running? How on earth they're going to manage this Olympics this year without there being problems? I genuinely worry for people going, as I did for people that went to the Rugby World Cup last year. I wouldn't go to Paris again under any circumstances. Under any circumstances.
They do treat football fans as animals, don't they, abroad, especially English fans. Does that stop you going then? Does it, would you go to another Champions League final abroad, or a World Cup or Euros or anything like that?
I don't think so. I don't think so. We went to Liverpool Benfica here. I live in Lisbon, so we went to Liverpool Benfica. I've been to Benfica Stadium a couple of times. It's a nice stadium. And after the game, we were kettled in again another small subway, and then put on a metro that didn't stop and went all the way to the end of the line. And you can see people going, but my hotel's back there. Why have I got to go all the way there and then I've got to get an Uber all the way back? It's like so at the end of the line, we're just all kicked out, but there's no police there. It's like you're treated as a subhuman. Yet you've travelled to this city, you're staying in a hotel, you're being in the bars, you're being in the restaurants, you're bringing tourism to the city. Yet you do get treated. You're going to get locked in for an hour or a couple of hours after the game. But yeah, you kind of think, maybe my time's done for that. I'm certainly not. Well, he says if Liverpool do beat Atalanta tonight and Benfica beat Marseille, then they're due to play Liverpool here in 2nd of May. Maybe my story will be different. I don't know, but it doesn't fill me. It doesn't fill me with that whole thing. Particularly when you go to Anfield or you go to any most English grounds, it's a day out, and it's like you don't get that. The police presence and the stewarding at Anfield certainly is first class. But when we left on Sunday and on Thursday, the Atlanta fans, the Palace fans, everyone was coming out of the ground at the same time. Palace fans were singing, of course they were singing, they were happy, but not even a sniff that there would be problems or there would be trouble. Why would you do that? It's so yeah, but I don't know. I think, as I said, Ethan, it's a legacy of what happened in the past. Yeah, and it's not just Liverpool fans. I know Man City fans and Rangers fans that have been to Lisbon in the last couple of years have all been treated the same. So it's not just Liverpool fans. It's everyone abroad. So you wonder whether
exactly. So on Liverpool, do you think you'll do another comeback tonight?
you just can't write this team off, eh? You can't write this team off. The thing is, they do know they can do it because they've done it before. It's going to be a hell of a challenge because Atalanta are a good side. They're well organised. They certainly were very well organised against Liverpool on Thursday, and they were when I watched them against Sporting Lisbon. So it's yeah, and you never say never, eh? Never say never. And we've got to go into it believing we can do it. You can't go into a game thinking, well, we're going to get turned over here. So get an early goal. Yeah, Barcelona was just one of those.
Did you go to Barcelona?
I was in South Africa. I watched it in a bar, the best football bar in outside of Liverpool I've ever been to, called Porter Sports Bar in Durban. We used to go there every game, to the point where you had to book your table. And I remember when the fourth goal went in, I was had my hands on my head. I was like, the whole pub was going bonkers, and just thinking, I can't believe that just happened. I cannot believe that. My brother was there, and lots of friends were there, and they said it was just nuts. So that's the thing we've got. I mean, there's a few players that played that night that will play on tonight. Well, if they start anyway, so they know they can do it. They know that the talent's there to do it, but it's a big ask. I know it's a big ask.
You mentioned you were at the Champions League final against AC Milan when you were 3-0 down. He broke back to 3-3 and won on penalties. What was that night like?
Again, just surreal. For me, surreal because yeah, you'd heard all the stories. I remember dropping my brother off for him to go at the 78 Cup final at Wembley, and yeah, you hear all the stories. My father-in-law was in Paris and was in Rome and in Wembley. You know, all the older guys that had stories of winning the European Cup, and then suddenly, from all those years of us playing some pretty poor football, and even that season, you know, we were nothing special in the league, and then we won the European Cup against AC Milan. You know, if you're 1-0 down against AC Milan back then, it's game over. 3-0 down. Oh yeah, it was again. It was like, am I really watching this? Did this really happen? Yeah, it was something else. It was amazing, incredible night.
Had you given up at half time? Was it like game over kind of thing? Did you think that?
You can't think much else. I remember I used the toilets and I was watching people walking out, thinking because the ground was in the middle of nowhere. It was almost like there's no point in leaving now because all the buses that brought us here, they're not going to go home they're not going to take us home until the end of the game. But yeah, if people want to leave, and a lot of people left. But yeah, it was 6 minutes, 7 minutes of madness. We scored those 3 goals, and even after that, it was like the Alamo. They just kept coming at us. But yeah, look, it's a special football team. It's given me some of the best memories of my life. I've seen some incredible things, but yeah, how you then go 2 years later to Athens, play much better. We were the better side and got beat 2-1. That's football, eh? That's football.
Yeah,
Look at
exactly.
Madrid last night. Madrid, well, they will play the game. They rode their luck, but they 35% possession and ends up winning the game. They were the same, maybe different circumstances in the final against Liverpool, but because there was an odd atmosphere in the ground, I'm told. But they weren't the better side in the night. We had far more chances. But that's what makes the game, eh?
Do you think you've thrown the league away with that loss against Palace, or are you still optimistic?
Liverpool were 15 points behind. I know it's a long time ago. We were 15 points behind Everton in '86 at one stage and managed to reel it in. So Liverpool need to win football matches, right? When we've not done so clever against United and now Palace. So we need to play very well and win the football match on Sunday. That's our priority. Got to do one game at a time, and hope that Arsenal and City after last night, certainly the City players, Haaland and De Bruyne had to go off because they were physically knackered. If that hangs over on a Sunday or the following week. Sorry, it's not this weekend. They play Chelsea. They play Chelsea in the cup, don't they? So it'll be their next league game. Anything can happen. There's still 18 points to play for. We had it in our gift, which is disappointing to have the opportunity in your gift. But I'm pretty sure if anyone had said to most Liverpool fans at the start of the season, you'll finish second, maybe third, you'll win a cup, definitely get Champions League, would you take that? Last season, we didn't get in the top four once, not once. I think most people would have taken that. The fact we've massively overexceeded that, some of the games that we've played and some of the kids that played and unbelievable performances we've had from some of those young kids means that, next season, the season after, Klopp's leaving us with a legacy of a football team that should be able to compete at this sort of level for the next 5-10 years, which is, that's remarkable. That didn't happen when Ferguson left for United. He won the league in his last season, and he won it with clearly a good side, but it was an older side, and there wasn't the talent that could then come behind that could replace it. Which I think he rebuilt that team 2 or 3 times, and that's what Klopp's done. He's leaving, going, look, whoever comes in behind, you've got some serious talent there. Which is great to look forward to, but look, the next 6 weeks are going to be twists and turns still, I'm sure.
I support Leeds, so I know it feels like never doing anything the easy way.
No one wants to win, Nathan. What's going on in that league?
I know.
It's bonkers.
Yeah, it really is.
Bonkers. I think last weekend, everyone in the top 4 lost. I'm like, nah, this is crazy. Bonkers. But last time I saw Leeds play Liverpool, you beat us 2-1. And you were good for it as well. You were good for it. We had a shocking day. Just like we did on Sunday. A shocking day at the office.
Well, thank you for that. I've really enjoyed that episode, and it was a pleasure to talk to you, and I really appreciate you coming on and telling your story.
Thanks, Ethan. Appreciate it, and thanks for giving us the opportunity to tell a story, particularly about the HSA, and if there are people out there, help's there if they need it.
Just on the HSA, where can people find you on social media?
So our Twitter handle, let me just get it out because I always forget it. Where are we? Don't kill me for that. It is at Hillsborough SU1. That's our Twitter handle. And if you put Hillsborough Survivor Support Alliance into the search bar in Google, it will bring up our website. Either way, if you send us a message on Twitter or you send a message through the email, you'll be surprised at the response. If some of the customer service teams in the UK could respond at the same levels that we do, I think they'd be amazed. Within an hour or so, someone will be back to you with the offer of help.
Well, like I said before, I think it's a brilliant thing that you're doing. So, well done with that. And thank you for giving me the time to talk to you.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, Ethan.
Thank you. See you in a bit.
Take care. Cheers.
Bye. Bye.